Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the big board. So this morning we're going to have a quick look at Bloody Bridge, but only from the context of OpSheets. And what I'm going to try and do is, let me just try and get this set up here a little bit. There we go. What I'm going to try and do is put a OpSheet together for, I've got one here for the Japanese, maybe we try and put one together for the Americans on our prepared defense. And I've been trying to help Todd, a new friend of mine, learn the game. And as you all know, I'm probably not the best guy to actually teach anybody anything. However, I'm doing it. So he had a whole bunch of really good questions about OpSheets and how they work and how to use them effectively and when can I use them and how do I change from one OpSheet to another, how do I adjust my movement or my positioning based on what I'm seeing out in the field. So in this game we have some interesting situations, and I think what we'll do is get down here on the map and let's have a look. So first of all, the Japanese, let's see if we can just get a decent view here. So all the Japanese forces are coming in on this corner. Area A over here and Area B over here. And it's the initial force entry is, I don't know, the best way to put this is it's done in the through the jungle in the middle of the night. So it's a bit of a disaster. All these forces pretty much come on here. And then the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th companies come in here within 5 hexes on this edge line. And so the Japanese attack plan, I made it fairly detailed because I didn't look at the errata. And when I looked at the number of turns for the initial scenario, I was like, oh wow, I don't think we can actually make it in time. But I put, as you can see here, I put, I counted off movement points just to see if the guys could make it, etc., etc. And it ends up that there's 13 turns, not 11 turns. That makes a big difference because it takes until turn 9 to get to hill 123. So the overall situation in this, it's Guadalcanal, 1942 in September. I think September 12th through 14th, and it's the Raiders defending against the Japanese forces of the 124th. I think that's the regiment number. I forget now. And there was a lot of arrogance on the Japanese part. The Americans were set up in prepared defense positions and really handed the Japanese a tough lesson. Didn't help that the Japanese got lost along the way in the night, and so the full effect of all their forces being brought to bear was not realized. So what is an OpSheet? An OpSheet is simply a representation of the command's higher intent. So what does the Army want you to do in a given situation? And in this situation, the Marines, their higher intent is to protect the airfield. And our OpSheet, which there are 3 or 4 types, prepared defense, hasty defense, attack, and move, is simply to facilitate that. So what we do, this is a Japanese OpSheet, but we'll have a look at that in a sec. What we do is simply grab an image of the map, put down the locations of in general terms where the units are going to operate, what their boundaries may be if we want to do that, and where the rally points are when they fail, if they fail, and what their goals are. So that all sounds pretty straightforward, right? And it can literally be that simple. So if I'm in a PD and we've got units advancing and we know where they're coming, looks like they're coming to attack hill 80. So all bets are off. They're charging in here, moving an entire 2 hexes a turn because it's jungle. So we get half a dozen turns to see that. we may have already developed an operational sheet, an alternative operation sheet, or we may have decided, okay, this looks like they're going for hill 180 and I don't have that, or hill 80, I don't have that very well defended. So I'm going to fail this op sheet here. And by that means that I'm releasing the unit, the formation, from its obligations, and it would then need to return or retire to its rally point. Now, on an op sheet, you put your failure instructions here, and you would delineate them here and then say, okay, well, the guys are going to move from A to B. That's going to be their new location where they'll wait for further instructions. The great thing about the Marines is they have an op sheet preparation rate of 1, which is very efficient and very flexible. So they could potentially start the game with multiple op sheets written up and then begin accruing weighted turns for those op sheets. And when they saw the specifics that they were looking for that made sense to them, they saw that, okay, they're attacking here, they could pull out op sheet number 2, roll for that to have it committed, and then go and execute. Now, there are some specific rules for what types of op sheets and what the Marines are allowed to do, and primarily it involves recapturing lost ground. But nevertheless, in general, I could, for instance, take this group, drop it off its op sheet, pop it back to its rally point, and say, okay, you guys are actually now going to be attached to or be part of a reserve force, and I will activate them when I deem it necessary. And that's probably how I would play this scenario, is have a standard prepared defense, grab one formation and make it a reserve force. And it could even stay over here, but make it a reserve force. That would give me then the flexibility to support in the confines of the op sheet the activities that the other guys are participating in. And that allows me to be a little more reactionary to the Japanese. So does that make sense? So let's see. We define our op sheet by telling ourselves where to be, what we're going to do. In a prepared defense is not a lot. You're really picking your positions and looking to hold them. You're going to have some rally points, and in this case, I'd probably abandon hill 180 and pop back to hill 123. And from there, I would, then my next op sheet would be a counterattack or an attack op sheet, and I would want to try and recapture hill 80. And that would be the full extent of my op sheets. You can say, hey, let's look at this. Look at the Raiders as a group overall. So all the guys with a white stripe. There's more over here. I'll just move the camera a little bit. There's some more over here, right? These 3 companies. Let's say that their prepared defense sheet is being considered, and we want to set that up. So we would simply say that C1 would defend the Log Bridge area between the Lunga River and the Log Bridge. These guys are going to defend hill 80. These guys are going to defend hill 123. And we would define a rally point. So for these guys, I would probably put a rally point somewhere closer towards hill 123, primarily because, to me, that location and the location behind it, the Marine Divisional Headquarters, are more important than the Log Bridge for the time being to me. These guys, same thing here. I'd probably have a rally point back here, and I can let these guys choose a rally point, which could be further away back here at the Div headquarters, or stand and die type of thing. Anyway, so once you've got your fail instructions, your kind of the area of operation. So on the map, I can say don't move beyond these boundaries if that's the level of detail you want to get to. That's all well and good. You can do that. let's say we get into the game and we realize that the Japanese have brought on 4 companies, and they've decided to all swing all the way. I've got some shadows here, so you probably can't see, but I've got one company of the paras over here, and they're laid out, set out there, and 8 companies, all the forces from the Japanese are headed this way. Clearly, there's an alternative plan going on that my initial setup is not going to be able to deal with. So I look at that situation and go, okay, hey, I need to make a change. I write a plan up, or I may already have written a plan up before I started the game. And I accrue weighted turns, which are a function of a table in the rules, which I can show you if we really need to. They are. It's this little table here. You can't see the detail, but across the top there, it's got prepared defense, attack, hasty defense, and move. And then depending on the rating and the size of the op sheet and the command preparation skills, you roll a dice, 2 dice, to see when your units are ready. And you accumulate weighted turns depending on whether you're under orders, whether it's nighttime, or whether you're on a failed op sheet, or whatever the case may be. And when you've accumulated enough turns that give you a good enough chance to implement your op sheet, you roll the dice, implement the op sheet, and away you go. So I might either have a second op sheet brewing, in which case I could then roll the dice and activate it, and then implement it with for these troops. Or I may have, in my op sheet when I set this up, I may have said, hey, these guys are in prepared defense, but I'm actually going to make them a reserve unit and allow me to roll for their reserve activation, and I'm going to move them to counter the actions of my enemy. That is often a very powerful thing to do, particularly if you have a command rating of 1, which the Marines happen to do, or command prep rating of 1. It means you have to roll 1 or higher to activate the reserves, whereas the Japanese have a 6, which means they have to roll a 6 or higher on a d6 to activate. So clearly, putting new plans in place is very easy for the Americans, not very easy for the Japanese. So hopefully that helps a little bit. It's important to know that if you're on an op sheet, you choose when you fail. Really, it's only with vehicles that automatically fail when they reach certain loss levels. But you can hang on to the bitter end here and have one guy left with 1 step and fight on and die where you stand. Or you can say, hey, I've lost 2 steps. I'm electing to fail and retreat to my rally point, wherever that may be, brew the new op sheet or roll for the new op sheet, and then move into those positions or begin the movement towards those positions and then roll for the new op sheet, if that makes sense. It's called preparatory movement, I think, in the rules. So for the guys that were asking how you might do that, how you might do an op sheets here, this is kind of how it works. I know that's probably not very well explained, but nevertheless, I will write up the Marines op sheet and then post it online. You guys can look at it and you can ask questions, and we'll have at it from there.